All right, let's get started with this story. Now, I find myself, in some ways, back to the beginning, in the sense that I feel almost like I did in 2013 when I made my first video. I feel nervous. I've made 50 videos. I've gotten a lot of approval and accolades for these videos, and lots of thumbs up and not many thumbs down. So why am I feeling so nervous? I guess it's because I'm about to make myself a little bit vulnerable publicly by talking about things that are painful and very personal. But I'm going to go ahead once again in the service of my values, namely, one, to illustrate even better, I hope, ACT principles by drawing forth ways in which ACT has worked for me in my life. And two, is there another value here? I think also by taking something difficult and doing it anyway. So there's sort of a meta value of persisting in the service of my values, even though it's difficult, and thus giving myself more room in which to function. I like to perform, I like to make videos, I like to be educating? I like to teach and entertain. How about that? Okay, so I found myself in 2010, the father of two children and the holder of a doctoral degree in psychology, the head of a small, growing private practice, and the owner of a home, the lesser half of a happy marriage, and all that good stuff. And I looked around and I remember exactly where I was in my house and where I was standing and what I could see, and it hit me all at once, just like in a movie. And I had that big midlife crisis moment just in time, age 40, second child had just recently been born, and it was just like that song by the Talking Heads, for those of you who remember the Talking Heads, that popular song that I like actually very much. My God, what have I done? And along with this came this thought, oh Lord, I have f***ed up my entire life. And it was felt very sincerely. It felt very real. This was not what I wanted. I should have become a musician when I was 16, 17, getting ready for college. I let people talk me out of it, and I hooked up my entire life. No matter what success is, no matter how successful I am now, I'm doing the wrong thing, and it's all for nothing. Now, I'm a psychologist. I know that's a very distorted thought and so forth. Doesn't matter. It hit me like a truck, and I knew I was going to have to do something about it. Well, thankfully, I was already studying ACT, and I knew from experience that getting involved in music was at least a mitigating activity, at least took the edge off of this kind of feeling when it rose up before. Not that we're looking to take the edge off feelings, but studying ACT, I knew that we could do better than that. We could actually get involved in the very things that I had previously avoided in the service of perhaps avoiding some anxiety or feeling like I was going to have a safer life back when I was 16, or that I was going to comport with the plans that other people had for me at the time, namely perhaps my parents or some idea of what society wanted for me, or what I even wanted for myself in terms of my values of being responsible or financial stability or something like that. So I started to look for ways to get involved in music again. And now here's where we can see how some of this can play out and just how difficult some of this stuff can be when the rubber really hits the road and we try to put it into practice. So one of the first things I did is go out and buy a big honking synthesizer and a computer and some recording software, and I said, I'm going to record a bunch of music. I'm going to compose and record a bunch of music, and I got my guitar and started doing all this stuff. Talked to my wife about how important this is, and started doing all this stuff in a room that was soon to become my daughter's bedroom. Well, make a long story short, I didn't think very much of the stuff I recorded, and it turns out I'm not very skilled at making my own recordings, and I don't think anyone who heard those recordings thought very highly of them. And furthermore, when I became involved in this work, all those old feelings came back of, oh, I'm so bad at this. I would have been so good at this if I had persisted with my plans and gone to music school. And now look at me with my pathetic efforts here. And now I'm not even going to have this room anymore because my daughter's going to need the room, and blah, blah, blah. And so I did what so many people do in so many instances. I pulled back from it again, as I had done so many times before. This wasn't the only time I'd gone back to music, by the way. I'd done so periodically. So this was another attempt. Another thing I did was enroll in classes at Portland State, specifically a jazz performance class, jazz ensemble. I find jazz very difficult to learn. I'd tried to learn it before in my teens, and I took it on again. And while that did reap some benefits, and I certainly did persevere in the face of a lot of fears and a lot of regrets and a lot of painful feelings, it didn't give me the kind of satisfaction I was looking for. It didn't seem to lead to a lot of other things, a lot of other musical activities, partly because it just turns out that I don't have a lot of talent at jazz performance, probably because I haven't listened to a ton of jazz. So again, I kind of pulled back from that. And that brings us to toward the end of 2010, and also the end of this video, which is essentially the crisis flailing around part of the story. And I'll continue the story in the next video. Hopefully somebody is interested and still watching, other than, I don't know, my mom or a couple friends.